What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to take a look at the wonderful trans Ronin, their version of a masterpiece scale drift. I say masterpiece because it's kind of a big figure, but it is meant to be, a larger size. And this figure is kind of interesting because I watched a couple of reviews already. Obviously, I watched Peak for Life, my buddy, to learn the transformation, and I also watched Bobby Skullface, another friend, just to get his thoughts on it. And I come to the conclusion the transformation is very challenging, but it's a good looking figure. So one thing I wanted to mention up front is I don't think this is their first figure. I don't think Wonderful Trans is kind of coming out with this figure first. In the third party world, they typically, it's a collection of 10 or 15 people out there who are starting these companies, and very often companies will just choose a new name and pop up with a new name and then release a couple figures and then move on to another name. My belief is this is done by G Creation, so I'll put the image up there. Way back, G Creation teased some of their figures. They actually got a lot of these out and into production, but their Ronin figure, which actually has the same name, so that's one thing that kind of has me thinking, never got produced. Now the design is very different, the robot mode's different, the vehicle mode's different, but it does kind of feel and look like it's G Creation, just based on the name and the fact that they had a design coming. But who knows with these third-party companies. So with that all said, let's get started with this figure and take a look. And he really looks awesome. He's a very good looking in robot mode. You got all this translucent detail here, the translucent yellow, translucent blue here, painted silver and gold details, painted silver here, painted blue metallic here, more of that gold paint here on these intakes, more detail here, silver paint here. There's a lot of paint. This white is actually a pearlescent white. It's not just a flat white, so hopefully you can see that on camera. Silver paint here. Come to the back, more detail. The entire back is detailed. Now, we'll get to talking about that later, but because they styled it everywhere, that makes the transformation that much more complex. But again, on the back, you got the red, you got this, which ends up in detail in the vehicle mode. Gold, red, more paint here on these hip skirts. I mean, it's fully painted and detailed. It really does look good. Head sculpt looks good, pretty good. It's a little bulky for a drift in terms of like the width of the head, but the shape and the look is pretty darn good. These ears, by the way, are very sharp and thin, so just be careful when you're posing it. Try not to put too much stress on those ears. So let's take a look at his articulation. So the head can go up to there, down to there. You can rotate around, but his chin runs into his shoulders here, so you have to kind of lift it up to get it around. And then his ears run into it, so it's a little bit limited how far you can actually get it. So just be careful as you're posing it. Shoulders rotate around on this joint here, but if you use this joint, and I'll open this just so you can see what I'm doing. If you use this joint, it works a lot better and looks a lot better. So you can get this all the way up to here, and that's pretty good. Back to there. Now if you want to rotate it up higher, then you have to rotate at that back joint, but it starts to look weird because the joint is so far back on his shoulder or on his side here that it kind of looks weird, right? So you can only go so far before it starts to look weird. So combining them together, you can get it up there. Out to the side, if you open up this wheel, you can get it all the way up to there, which is nice. And then on this inner joint, it can also go up. So you can see there's a joint right here that allows you to get up and down. You have a double joint elbow, gets you the full bend. And you have this little piece, and there's little bits kind of everywhere. So just be careful, but I really like the way that looks. It's a really nice, again, plenty of painted detail and sculpted detail. This figure is not missing any detail. You have a rotation at the wrist, in and out movement at the wrist. The fingers, probably one of the worst things on the figure, but the bottom three are connected and, kind of lifeless to be honest, but the pointer finger is separate and you can pose it on 2 pins. The thumb is on a ball joint and there is a pin. So you can actually get that out of the way. And later I'll talk about this. It does kind of get in the way of the weapons, but there's a way to use it if you want to. Coming down to here, you have a rotation at the waist. Watch out for collision. You have not really any ab crunch on this guy. I mean, it feels like he should have an ab crunch, but I don't know, it doesn't go. And you can see I left the plastic in there to protect the inner workings. There's a lot of stuff in here for the transformation. But yeah, it doesn't, it feels like it should have one, but it doesn't. These two side pieces, by the way, are die cast. There is quite a bit of heft to this guy. Speaking of die cast, these two, a little bit in the leg here, right here in the sides, and then some of the inner workings, some of the inner joints. And I want to say this thigh is also die cast, or at least the inner joint. You can see the die cast there. So it's got some nice heft. It feels good, weighted well, and balanced well to, stand and pose well. I'll continue on with the articulation. The hip skirts can move up and down on this joint. Really part of the transformation, but that will get out of the way. The legs can go up to there, back to there. It's a very strange joint, but your rotation or on universal, it does tend to pop this panel out of the way, but put that back in. The hip skirts can rotate all the way around. They can go up and down, and you can rotate here on this joint. So there's a lot of movement on these hip skirts, and they act as the sheaths for the sword, so that's pretty nice. But if you move those out of the way, then the leg can go out to the side, up to there on a friction joint. No ratchets really on this figure at all, by the way. But there's tensioned nicely. You have a double jointed knee, gets that full bend, a little bit of automorphing going on there. You have ankle tilt here, up to there. There is an ankle pivot, but you do have to unplug the heel from the toe, otherwise you can't do it. So you come to the bottom here, and this has happened to me a couple times. This panel likes to pop off, but you're really grabbing this to detach it from the toe. So right here, there we go. So that little peg's got to come out. Now we've got tilt. So you can go down to there. You can get up, but it's very tight, but you can get up. So get this out of the way, and you can get it up, down, and the heel, of course, similarly will go up and down. So you can get him posed back and forth on those. It's just a little bit difficult, and it's not intuitive that that joint actually opens up. Now for his accessories, you actually get quite a few things here. You get these two kind of shorter, fatter swords. You can sheath it here like this, obviously on both sides if you want to. And that's, it's got a nice look to it. And obviously you can use the articulation on that hip skirt to move it around. You can also put it in the hand. Now these hands, the thumb does actually get in the way of pegging this. So if you lift the thumb up like this and just have it down on that joint, and then you put this peg in and you close this around, oops, you can sort of cheat. And it's not the best, but you can get it kind of off to the side on the back, like that. Doesn't look great, but that's the best you can get. So you can hold that. You can also use the larger sword. So it looks like this. It's got the blue here, again painted blade, and then the black plastic. This one, same thing. You can also, if you move that thumb out of the way like that, get it pegged in. And I actually prefer this sword. You can get the thumb just kind of around, and now you can hold that sword. I like this one a lot better. You also get this piece here, which come to the back. It'll peg in right here. You can't transform it with this, so you do have to take this off. And I don't mind too much, but that's simply to store the sword on his back in robot mode. So you just slide it down into here, and that'll sit there. So it does actually look nice like this with this display. But you have that. You take this out because you also have, and we'll take this piece off. You also have the cape or scarf, whatever you want to call it. It does have a cut, so the cut goes to the back. This stitched part goes to the front. It does have a wire in it, so you can pose this cape, kind of like the MMC capes that we've gotten in the past. And it is kind of tattered, so it looks like, you know, it's worn or whatever. So the way you want to put this on is you want to come to the back and first get it over his ears. I'm going to just show you. Get this part over his ears. Then pull it forward. And then come to the bottom and get this under his chin. I guess you could have it covering his face if you wanted to, but I think it looks better underneath his chin. Then for posing purposes, you can do whatever you want because it has the wire, and you can see the wire actually popping out there, but it really does look good. And for size comparison, there it is next to the Transform Element Optimus Prime and the Takara Tomy Blue Streak. And I don't really have any IDW figures here other than the Planet X Star Saber, which is a totally different scale and size in that line. And I don't really have any IDW action figures here either, like Flame Toys or any of those. And this guy is actually a little big, you know, in terms of his robot mode. He scales not quite right with the Masterpiece line. Now, the G Creation and the few others that made the IDW style Prime, they're about this size. And that's why I brought this guy in here. And you can see he's really big. He kind of looks too big with those. So I don't know if they were going for their own scale or just, you know, kind of a standalone bot, or maybe meant to fit with, you know, like action figures from some line. But he doesn't look to fit properly with a Masterpiece scaled line. Or at least if he does, I don't know which line it would be. But there you go for comparison. All right, now let's get this guy transformed into his vehicle mode. And I know there's going to be people sad with this video because I'm not going to transform it on camera. I'm going to do it off camera using Pick for Life's video. I'm going to link that right here so you can take a look at that if you need help. But just to save myself the aggravation and to save you the 20 to 30 minutes of time that it would take to show you the transformation, I'm going to do it off camera and we'll be right back when we get to vehicle mode. And there you have a Ronin in his vehicle mode. And what a nightmare. What a nightmare to get it here. It does eventually come together, but my God, there's so many sliding joints and telescoping joints and collapsing things and things that have to flip and go right back. It actually doesn't clear the ground very well. The front tire is on a slider, so you do have to slide this down on the slider and then it will clear. But the rear tire is supposed to sit down like this, but as weight gets on it, it gets pushed up. So, you know, you can start it down, but eventually it'll get pushed up and then it doesn't roll. And it's actually rubbing on this. I have a soft surface here. I don't recommend rolling this on a hard surface because there's all sorts of painted details down here that you'll be scratching if you roll it. So don't do that. These rear wheels just don't stay in place. It is a beautiful looking vehicle. It's done in this pearlescent white paint. Translucent blue here for the cockpit, although I wish it was not so see-through because you can see all the stuff inside. Translucent yellow here for the headlights and for the signals. Silver here and on the wheels. Silver on the hood here. Silver for these intakes. Red paint here and on the engine. Coming to the back, you have red taillights with gold markers, and then these are supposed to be exhaust, I guess. And it does look really, really good. It's just doesn't perform. You really can't roll it. The front wheels tend to roll, but the back wheels, because of the way they're designed, and this pops out too, but it's supposed to stay down, and it just doesn't stay down. So kind of a unfortunate design there, where things just don't perfectly fit. Now, this vehicle mode, even though this is supposed to be drift, is not actually drift vehicle mode from IDW comic. It's actually from a show, GPX Future, Cyber Future Asurada is this vehicle. And it's from a cartoon. I'll put the image up there so you can see it. It's obviously from that. And what they did is they gave you some stickers. So as far as accessories, you get these stickers. They're actually really nice. They're water slides. I'm not going to put them on. It's a pain in the ass, but these water slides will go on this vehicle, and that will make it really look like the Acerata from the TV show. But that's not drift, so I just wanted to mention that this isn't really drift's alt mode. As far as the accessories, these swords will mount here. So there's little tab spots right there on the spoiler. You can pick these and plug them in there like that. There we go. You can also take the sword holder. That will plug in right here on the back. If you want to store it, I mean, you don't have to, but it's an option if you want to. So just sit like that. And then this sword, I haven't really found a spot for it. I mean, it will plug in if you don't have this one plugged in, but you can't really plug in both at the same time. So this one just kind of sits off to the side. But there you go for vehicle storage. And for some size comparisons, there it is next to the Takara Tomy Masterpiece Wheeljack and the MP10 Optimus Prime. And again, the scale just doesn't work here. I actually went through all the vehicles in my collection just to see if there was something that fit, and it's just a giant vehicle. So I don't think it was meant to fit with the Masterpiece scale. Now maybe with some other figures they're planning to make, Wonderful Trans or whatever this company is, but as far as the Masterpiece, it doesn't seem to fit well. So final recommendations on the Wonderful Trans Ronin. And every time I say Wonderful Trans, it's funny because it's not a wonderful trans. It's a horrible trans. The transformation on this is not fun. So I'm going to give this a partial recommendation, a 3 out of 5, because the robot mode is awesome. It looks great. It feels good. It poses pretty nicely. There's a couple little limitations, but overall has pretty good articulation. The weapons and accessories are nice. I like the look of these. I wouldn't really put them in his hands. I just think it looks better posed in the sheaths. I like the longer sword. I like the cape or the scarf. And it's nice that they gave you this little mounting point, so if you want to have it on his back, that's a good thing. Even the stickers are nice, but the alt mode and the transformation is where this guy falls down. The transformation is not fun. It's very frustrating. It's also very risky to the figures due to the way they designed it. There's a lot of stress on certain joints. And while I think the vehicle mode looks okay, it looks pretty good, it's not drift. It's that GPX Cyber Factory, Acerata vehicle. So, that's a little weird that they chose to change the alt mode to that. It just doesn't represent drift, and getting there is not fun. So that's why this is a partial recommend for me. If you're just going to keep it in robot mode, it's great. It's fun to pose and play with. If you're going to transform it or you're going to display it in vehicle mode, I'm not sure I can recommend it. So that's it for this review. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.